historian and political analyst Pat Walsh. Pat, good to have you on the programme. Welcome. Before we look at the history, what do you expect from the talks today in Brussels? Armenia's president is heading there to talk to the EU and NATO.
Well, good afternoon. I'm glad to speak to you this afternoon. I can't see Prime Minister Pashinyan getting much joy in Brussels. Basically, he is visiting Europe at a very bad time. Europe is engaged in a couple of crises at the minute, internal crises, very, very serious crises over Brexit, the British withdrawal from the European Union, which hasn't been sorted out properly yet, and also obviously the spread of coronavirus. So I think the Europeans, certainly Karabakh is very much down on their priorities. Secondly, with regard to NATO, I don't think that President Putin will be too happy about Pashinyan visiting and going basically crying to NATO about his predicament. So essentially, I just see this as an Armenian propaganda offensive, which is probably going to go nowhere.
Now let's talk about the history. As a historian, do you think Azerbaijan is justified in taking control of its territory?
Yes, well, of course. I mean, it obviously has 4 United Nations Security Council resolutions on its side from 1993. But historically, of course, this country, this area has been largely under Azerbaijani control. It was under Azerbaijani control in 1918 under the Azerbaijan Democratic Republic. When the British occupied the area just at the end of 1918 and 1919, Karabakh was still retained under Azerbaijan's control. Afterwards, when the ADR was independent for a brief period before the Russian occupation, again, Karabakh was part of Azerbaijan. And finally, from 1920 on to the early 1990s, under the Azerbaijan Soviet Socialist Republic, Karabakh was also part of Azerbaijan. So it's definitely all history in recent history has shown that Karabakh is a part of Azerbaijan. Even prior to the Russian occupation in the Tsarist times back in the 1830s, this area was independent khanates. The Russians made peace treaties with the local Muslim khanates, and essentially they recognized the area as basically a Muslim area. Mm-hmm. So the Armenians are really the only people who believe that Karabakh is Armenian. Okay. To be honest, they invent quite a lot of stories from vast periods back in history, which really don't have any real modern meaning and really shouldn't be taken in with any seriousness.
Pat, I want to ask you about reconciliation. We've just seen what an atrocity looks like in October 2020 there in Genge. But given previous atrocities, particularly the 1992 Khojaly massacre, do you think reconciliation between Armenia and the people of Azerbaijan would be possible?
Well, I mean, let me say, first of all, I'm speaking from the north of Ireland, and, we have a lot of experience with conflict and with peace and reconciliation here. It's a very, very important part of conflict resolution. If conflicts are not resolved peacefully, and if there's not functional political arrangements instituted to make sure that reconciliation develops, well, we just get a return of these conflicts, and we get more young men, more women, further generations dying. Do I think that there's a chance of reconciliation in this conflict? Well, I like to think as a historian of the kinds of reconciliation I've seen in the past. For instance, when Ataturk defeated his enemies, he brought forward a process of reconciliation and making peace with his enemies. And essentially, in our own country here, the Irish patriot Bobby Sands, he had a great saying. He said, "Our revenge will be the laughter of our children." And that's a perfect attitude to take. I hope very much that the Azerbaijanis make peace with the Armenians, and the Armenians are facilitated in being able to stay in Karabakh. This is the only real functional solution to the issue, and I hope that this is the way that it is resolved, because 28 years ago, the Armenians ethnically cleansed large amounts of Azerbaijanis from Karabakh and surrounding territories. And look what Karabakh is like now. Look what Armenia is like now. This is the absence of reconciliation, and it is a dysfunctional settlement. And essentially, it has produced the current conflict. So we need a situation whereby reconciliation makes conflict and further conflict impossible.
Pat Walsh, really good to get your historical perspective on the news hour. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much.